are live once again right here with 3D Politics. I've got two of the most amazing Davids right here in Oklahoma. I'm Tom McKay, your fantastic host with 3D Politics. I've got David Van with SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and you can catch me on Twitter at Tom E. McKay. Now, we've got a bunch of stories tonight, but I want to start off with a gal that really triggered me this last week, Danielle Weisberg. She really got me good. Her Twitter feed said, "It's my right," she says, "as an American, to go bankrupt when I get sick." Her sarcasm, of course, is just dripping. "I deserve lifelong debt for going to college. Every day is an anniversary of a school shooting." You know, it's too bad she didn't just say mom right there. And then $7.25 an hour is plenty. Thank you. Freedom, baby, USA. Well, me being a patriot, I was triggered. So I just jumped on this thing. It happened to be promoted by a thing called the SH1T Abyss. So I said, well, in response to each one of her sarcastic remarks, you don't get your rights as an American. You get your rights from God. Bankruptcy is a protection by the U.S. government to incentivize capital investment that provides opportunity for people to hire employees. When you get sick, the emergency room cannot turn you away in America because it's the protection by the U.S. government. You deserve the lifelong opportunity to risk debt for personal financial gain. And you're lucky to live in the USA, where you have the opportunity to be educated at a college of higher learning after being provided a free, prepaid public education, if you call it that, from the U.S. government. Every anniversary of any school shooting is proof that the forced indoctrination of socialism through LBJ's Great Society has been a colossal and deadly failure. And I gotta say, as I pause right there, that's the one place that they didn't really even, all it was WEF. WTF, they really had no idea. They knew that God didn't exist, but they didn't know who LBJ was. Further, so failure due to the part. So again, the failure of the LBJ Great Society was a failure due to the departure from the original government and constitutional principles. Here's the best, my favorite line of all that I said, because this was really good. $7.25 an hour is plenty if you're only worth $5 an hour. That's you're making true. You're free as an American to bargain for any wage you can command. Start your own company so you can be free to pay everybody more. As an American woman, you're free to demand 20% more than a man makes. And welcome to Freedom, baby, USA, where women are more free than men. Now there's a bait line for you.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
on your last point, I work my butt off every day. Guess who gets to stay home? Love you, honey. Thank you. Just make me a warm meal when I come home.
Right? Yeah, it's teamwork. Either way.
It is. It is a team. Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. I wanted to bite on this bankruptcy. She's talking about her student loans, and why can't she just pull this bankruptcy lever and be free of the student loan debt? What do you think on the student loans, Oldham?
Well, I mean, a number of things. First off, you owe your debts. Don't get into debt if you don't want to be in debt. If you don't want to pay them back.
Oh, thanks, Dad.
But, Oldham, I'm going to ask you the tough question. Is bankruptcy a constitutional right?
Well, it's not a right at all. It's not a right. No, it's not a right. But I'm trying to remember if it is actually in the
Constitution. It absolutely is in the Constitution.
It is in the Constitution, but it is not a right. It is because you owe what you owe. If you don't get into debt, if you're not...
You don't have the right to go bankrupt. I mean, you can legally go bankrupt. That is you pursuing your happiness.
No one. Well, who are you not harming the lender in that particular case? Of course you are.
Not legally. Not legally.
No, wait a minute. we're not talking about legally. We're talking about morally, because all rights ultimately.
We're jumping to moral.
No. You are harming somebody else.
That's true.
So you are.
And they knew that when they wrote it in the Constitution.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Now, mind you, because it's in there, it now is law.
It's constitutional law.
It's constitutional, so it's part of our law. It's nothing that we will change without amending the Constitution.
Okay, now what's happened here in the last 30 years, because, they say, well, the fact that it's in the Constitution doesn't mean that the Congress can't regulate it. And what they've done is they said, federally guaranteed student loan debt cannot be wiped out. And that was a federal law they made that says, no, you still have to pay. You cannot file bankruptcy to get relief from student loan debt. Was that constitutional what the Congress did to negate your bankruptcy options?
Way to go, Danielle. You really opened up a can of worms.
These are questions I haven't considered at length, so I'd have to stop and think about it.
So we got you then.
We don't have. I don't have every answer.
I didn't mention this in show prep tonight.
I could have had an answer maybe if I had 5 minutes.
It is so hard to pull a zinger on you that I have to pull these.
To go out and trap the boy,
He's good, guys. He's really good.
All right,
but the thing is that no matter what you do, when you get away with not paying your debt that you have taken out voluntarily, then that is theft, and
morally.
Well, it is a theft. It is.
Right, no, but
factually a theft. You are
statutorily, it's not. It's morally
correct.
Yes.
Correct. So factually, morally, those are synonymous.
Okay.
No, they are. The thing is, can you get away with it in this life? I don't believe anybody gets away with anything.
Right.
And so you may get away with it in this life, but ultimately you don't.
Yeah.
But the point is, factually, it is a form of theft. So the question is, how much are you going to be stealing from your neighbors and so forth, and the lenders, whatever lender.
Because you do reap what you sow, and nothing they write in the Constitution can negate God's natural law of reaping and sowing, or karma bites.
Right.
Yeah. So
well, it'll seem like we're flogging this to death, but actually, the other half of this discussion with Danielle is their response to me, and to tie it in, Josh Turley. He had a post earlier in the week that I responded to today that talking about, I'm not going to argue with people who can't understand what I'm saying,
right?
Because they don't have the mental capability, and I'm like, actually, that is how the propagandists win the argument, is they continue to repeat the lie over and over and over, and people with honor and integrity like Josh say, look, I'm not going to just argue with you and keep repeating. Well, then the lie continues to reverberate. Now, this is why I contend with these people on the Facebook, because these are you've heard of ancient aliens. These are millennial aliens. They're from another planet. Now, here is this guy who responds to me, and finally, after each one of them only said, okay, boomer, was their only response. I gave him a 14-point response to Danielle Weisberg's thing.
Let's explain. Now, this isn't Josh Turley, is it? That's your
This is not Josh Turley.
Okay, but by the way, because you bring it up, Josh Turley works at the county sheriff's office and the jail risk management guy. He's also been a candidate for a county commissioner.
He's a great guy. In fact, I supported him hard, and he's this guy is sharp.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's fine people like him who don't want to get in the mud. See, for me, it's no problem. I'll get in the mud.
And his hands are tied, too.
And just to be fair, there is a time that you stop contending with somebody.
That's true.
There is a time when you are flogging that dead horse.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
There is nothing that you are going to be able to do there. There's no one watching. There's no one else to benefit from the conversation.
Now,
And that's me. I do that all the time.
In the old days, when you would have a discussion with somebody where you're trying to convince them of something, your words were in the ether and they would go up and go away. But as we know on the internet, anything you type is there forever.
Right.
And so now contending with these morons is good because they'll go back. People in the future will be able to go back and mine the things that you've said and translate it like the Greeks did the gospel.
Yeah.
So my point is, here is what we're up against. If you're a thinking person that loves freedom, here is what now almost every person, this is a group of about 952 gamers that this post I kind of got triggered into responding to. So they all came at me, and nearly every one of them said, "Okay, boomer," which was their best response. That means I'm a baby boomer.
Oh, okay.
Yes, a baby boomer. That's the
boomer.
new insult for the aged. You're a boomer, which is funny because I'm so young. The true baby boomer said, "You're not. You're not.
Yeah,
one
you're
of
not
us."
even a baby boomer.
That's what they told me. But the kids today, the millennial aliens, they are telling me I am a boomer. But one guy here actually responded point for point. So here's the best they got out of 952 left-handed gamers. This guy responds to me on the SH1T Abyss. He says, false to me about all my 14 points. First one, false. Government regulates our rights. God doesn't exist. Boomer F-wit. That's how it starts. Bankruptcy ruins people for life. My family had to file bankruptcy. Now our credit is S for the rest of our lives.
No, it's not. It disappears.
I'm just telling you what the child said. Yeah. When you get sick, you can't be turned away. He's going point blank.
Oh, and he's so much younger, which means he knows more than us boomers.
I gotta give him credit. He went point by point. Okay.
Yeah.
When you get sick, you can't be turned away. No shit, retard. That isn't the argument. The argument is that going to the hospital leads to your previous stupid talking point, bankruptcy. If you are in debt, there is no personal financial gain, you effing retard. Now that's in response to me saying if you want to borrow money, you're free to borrow money to go to college, and then you can reap the benefit of your investment. He's saying if you're in debt, there is no personal financial gain, you effing retard.
Well, and this is what bothers me. Growing up in a family of 11, my folks always set aside for medical. Whether we had insurance or not, you always had to budget that medical needs are going to come up. What does he say? You got to go to the hospital, it's bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Well, that means you don't want to budget. You'd rather get a new gaming console. You know? And so there's our problem right there. You know, they think we got that problem. The bankruptcy thing, first of all, as soon as you file bankruptcy, you'll get a lot of credit card offers. You know why? Because you can't file bankruptcy again for 8 more years.
It's true. I know a guy went bankrupt and he got tons of
Exactly. You know, and then it disappears after 10 years completely.
Yeah.
He says for life. Well, to a baby boom, to a Gen Xer.
He's a millennial.
A millennial. It's the same thing. 10 years.
Right. So his response to me about the education that we have here in America, most first world countries have secondary educations, retard. All first world countries have free public education, retard. And just as an aside, you've heard about the Disney movies, and they've had to put out a little disclaimer about some of the crows are black. And
you mean now they're having to put
they're re-releasing. And, you know, this guy here, he's reminding me why I'm offended by that whole elephant movie. The whole title's called Dumbo. I mean, they couldn't have told me to look out to be offended. This guy knows I'm a retard. Now, here's the deal where I really got him. His answer to this next one was LMAO, what? Question mark. Every anniversary of any school shooting is proof that the forced indoctrination of socialism through LBJ's Great Society has been a colossal and deadly failure. Now understand, this guy has gone point by point through each one and had a smart-ass thing about how I'm retarded.
Right.
And he told me he knows that God doesn't exist. That's how well he knows God. But LBJ and the Great Society, what he says, he has no idea. The retarded millennial aliens have no idea what world we're living in. It's called LBJ's Great Society. So then, after telling me that the government is where he gets his rights because God doesn't exist, then he talks about the Constitution as a piece of paper written by a bunch of effing retards in the 18th century must be the best form of government ever. Okay? Here's a guy that wants to misunderstand the opportunity that God provides to get out from underneath government, and he wants to claim government is where he gets his rights, and then damn government for being a stupid piece of paper.
Right. Yeah, that like D'Ambrosio always says, they want it both ways.
They do.
They want to have their cake and eat it too.
Well, who's supposed to pay for this person to get not just a high school diploma, graduate, education, but now get college education? Somebody's got to pay for it. Right.
Well, look at the entitlement and mentality.
Right.
That it's just supposed to be there.
Oh, get this one.
And, I mean, money grows on trees. I mean, we're talking about children who are not taught the basics of economics. Not a lick of it, because
co-ownership
it's all
they know.
Yeah, it's all coming out of somewhere that the ether. And and it does, and nobody has a clue as to what is supposed to, how it's supposed to actually work.
Now, I told you I was going to beat this one to death.
All right.
So here's his response to my clever comment about, 5 is plenty or 750 is plenty if you're worth 5. Anyone who works a full-time work week deserves a living wage. Okay? No one is worth $5. And you're an actual retarded piece of shit for thinking slave labor is okay. Now, I, for the record, do not think that slave labor is okay. Just telling you.
Oh, I raised 3 kids. I put them to work. No, I'm serious.
That's not slave labor.
Well,
baby.
let me tell you, when my folks were kids, they both grew up on farms. And a child was considered a net asset to the family farm by the time they're age 8. Age 8, for those of you who haven't gotten a good education. And here's the thing. Today's society, a kid is never a net asset to the family. Now, I'm fortunate. I finally told the boss goodbye and started my own business where I could put my kids to work. And by God, they did work.
Right.
And we made that business a success because it was a whole family effort. I made sure that the kids benefited from it too, but they weren't owed anything growing up in our home. When, by God, we needed to work extra hours and I needed to bring my kids to work, I did. Call that slave labor if you want.
Well, it's not, because it's part of a family.
It's
Family
part of the family
dynamic is
structure.
completely different. That I was under the delusion back when my kids were little that you actually couldn't. You had to pay your kids minimum wage. You had to have the whole setup and pay their Social Security and blah, blah, blah.
California sucks, doesn't it?
I was indoctrinated, folks. I was. I mean, you look at me now. This is a big leap, and it's from self-education. But the thing is that the dictates and so forth have come down for so long, so hard, that we don't even so many people don't remember what it was like, and unless you're a buff for history or something like that, it's not happening. I mean, the History Channel doesn't even show history anymore.
No, these are 25 and 30-year-olds, And if you're just joining us, I'm Tom McKay here at 3D Politics. I've got David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com. I'm Tom E. McKay on Twitter, and we're talking about these American millennial aliens that have somehow landed on Earth and tried to distribute socialism. When I explain to them that you're free to bargain for any wage, $5 or $7.50. You can bargain. I mean, they're damning the American government for being mean when it's American government that gives you a minimum wage. Well, I mean,
let's pick that apart for a minute.
Okay.
First of all, they have a problem with understanding that rights come from God, and the way I like to explain it is that rights are inalienable and they're inherent to us. That's what it means to be from God. But that they emanate from us. They are contained within us. They are not something that God can, governments can grant.
It can't even be given away.
Natural law is the
natural law. Yeah. Natural law, especially, and that means that your rights to property, your rights to make choices about yourself and the direction of your life and the upbringing of your children, the raising of your children, and all of that is natural to each one of us, and we naturally fight for those things.
Yeah.
What government and media has done for so many years is that they have been manipulating that story, okay, which was upon which our nation was founded, and now turned it into everything is open for a democratic vote and majority rules. Yeah. And if we don't like the rule, then you suck. And that's what you're seeing the kid express.
Right.
You suck, and the government sucks. And if it weren't for the piece of paper, then we'd have what we want, because we're going to get it by hook or crook. And that's the way they think.
Yeah. Go ahead. Well, I'm going to say he lives in an echo chamber. You got a gamer who hangs out with gamers all the time, and they never get out and have a dialogue with people who maybe aren't like them, or, God forbid, are of another generation. You know, I love to talk to old folks. Young guys like me benefit greatly from the old folks, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these guys, they benefit from me because I got gray hair, right?
Makes me look young.
Yeah. No, and it is important. And it's important for older folks to not just talk about the damn kids that keep walking down my lawn. You know, bring the kid over on the porch, give him some iced tea, and invest something in them. Because I tell you, we've got to get past this generational divide. It's starting to kick back up. It was really big back in the 60s and 70s when I was a young kid. And, you just didn't see people under 30 talking to people over 30. And, and we're getting back to that, that real problem.
It seems like I'm really laboring this, and I really am. And the reason I am is because part of the problem with capitalism versus socialism is it illustrated in her comment can be made in one little snippet of less than 140 characters, and she states all the co-ownership she wants and makes it sound snarky and sarcastic. Well, it takes me 14 points of well-written response to explain how capitalism really works. And so you really, to understand what we're up against to get this, here's the smartest among them. And every answer is, I'm a retard, I'm an effing idiot, I'm effing this and effing that.
Right.
And when I explain that you can argue for any amount of money you want to get paid, he says, no, you aren't, dummy. Employers, I'd love to hear your comment on this. Employers set wages. I can argue with my boss, he says, about a raise all I want. I can try to get a new job and tell that boss what I want to be paid. That doesn't matter because the employer decides starting wages. Effing idiot.
You know why? Because he's worthless. He's
He is
expendable.
worthless.
Well, obviously,
but
and the kid obviously doesn't understand markets,
But-
because nobody has control over wages.
But to your
It's
point,
all about markets.
to your point, he's willing to accept the government's version of a guaranteed limited ceiling. Like, I'll
Right.
guarantee
Right.
you so much, but because he doesn't want the right to go ahead and fight for what he might be able to get the unlimited.
Well, and this comes
of
back
freedom.
to the lack of risk taking and the inability and the insecurity. I mean, we've got a rash, an epidemic of depression. Which is all caused by anxiety. By
we
the way,
talked
for the
about
most
the
part.
fatalism contagion.
Yeah, and this whole idea that oh, if I have to jump out and take a risk, or if I have to maybe go find a different job than the one I'm used to, that somehow this is going to stress me to the point that I'm going to have a breakdown. And welcome to life. Life is risky. I mean, hey, we live in a society that has removed most risk. You can go out and get a job. You can do work for yourself. You can do a lot of things. We're a prosperous society, especially now. We're prosperous to the point that it's hard to.
Okay, let me just knock this out of the water.
Yeah.
Tell this young boy
Yes.
here, we're going to give him a boat ticket to Venezuela, and he's going to try out every one of his theories for fixing things
That's a
through
good point.
government policy, and see how it's working in Venezuela or Cuba or any of these other places where all these bright ideas finally got strong enough to take over.
Have him stress over getting toilet paper.
So I'm suggesting that he can start his own business and pay anybody what he wants. He says, and he thinks he's real clever because he's got continuity in his arguments. Can't start a business if you're in debt. Thanks, capitalism. So that's how smart he is.
Well, and see, he's not taking responsibility for his
Right.
own indebtedness.
Exactly.
The system.
The system that's the
system
problem.
broke.
And you know what's really bad is that the system, if left to its own, without government intervention, would have kept prices down, that his indebtedness for college would have been minuscule, if any. Because you used to be able to easily work it off as you work.
Well, you didn't used to have to borrow your money from the government. But Obama changed that. You got to get your money from the government.
Okay.
I'm almost done.
Okay.
I'm almost done. Okay. And now, I said, as an American woman, you're free to demand 20% more than a man makes. Now, that's some pretty good bait for a progressive. And he says to me, got a source on that, retard? How do you respond to these idiots?
You don't. You don't.
I think that's what Josh Turley's talking about. At one point, you're like,
I'm going to see how young Oldham is. Finish the jingle. You deserve a break today.
Yeah, I can finish.
He could sing it.
Yeah, you can deserve it.
You don't have to sing it.
I remember
So
it.
get up and get away.
I'm horrible at
To
work.
McDonald's!
Yeah, to McDonald's!
It was one of the biggest jingles in the 70s. And the thing that I don't like about it is the whole notion of you deserve it.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a problem. And it's been growing every generation, every decade, this idea of entitlement and what I deserve.
Yeah.
And listen, when your right requires my servitude, it ain't a right.
Nope.
Okay? Because you just told us that slavery is not acceptable here. So, this is the problem.
And ultimately, that's the problem on every single one of those points. They in order to get what they want, they have to take from other people.
Right.
And that's what they're demanding.
And they're so tolerant. He has a couple of parting shots to tell me how loving he is.
Mm-hmm.
What freedom, retard, he says. Also, did I mention to me that I am an effing retard? And then he said, die, boomer.
Yeah.
So they're so friendly and tolerant. I just love them so much.
No. And, yeah, it's endemic of
this is
everything
the problem.
that's wrong
This is the
here.
problem with capitalism versus socialism. Socialism, you can say it on Twitter. But capitalism, you have to explain it in a document that lays out how this will work.
Well, and that's why I like to change the discussion from socialism and capitalism to tyranny versus liberty.
Yes.
Because you can't have socialism, you can't have free stuff without infringing on somebody else's liberty.
Right.
And you don't even have liberty at that point because you have the heavy hand of government actually on you. You may not care about that, but everybody else around you does.
So Tom,
I'm going to tie us back in.
Okay.
Hey, if you've been here or if you're just joining us, you're watching 3D Politics live on Monday nights at 7 p.m. I've got David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and you can catch me on Twitter, Tom E. McKay. What were you going to say, David?
well, I'm a blogger. I write, I do a lot of journalism, and I organize a lot of other journalists. The reason I don't do Twitter is because Twitter requires you to say everything you know about any topic in 280 characters. And for those people who can do that, they have Twitter. I simply cannot.
Yeah, my children told me, Dad, Twitter's perfect for you because you only get 140 characters.
They doubled it.
And did they double
They
it?
doubled it.
Well,
Okay,
it's
because
short-
of Trump.
It's a short amount of time to say the nastiest, meanest thing you can. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Well, see, the thing was, he was running out of characters, so he would jump to a new tweet.
To a new tweet.
I think he was blowing their algorithm because he was tweeting so much and getting so many likes and looks at all his tweets that he was blowing things up, and they wanted to tamp him down, so they made him bigger.
I love how they squeal and whine about how, he should stop tweeting. And that tells you how effective it is.
Oh,
yes.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right. Now we're going to move to some basically international news. And one of the things, Oldham, that makes this so pertinent from Hong Kong, these protesters.
Yes.
A lot of people asleep at the wheel here in America because a lot of people are busy paying their damn taxes and they don't have time to watch international news. But this is the harbinger and the warning for American citizens to get ready to protect themselves. But Hong Kong, CNN, protesters try to escape the Hong Kong University after a violent all-night clashes. Now, I thought this was old news, but like old news a day ago, but this was updated 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time today,
Yes.
Monday 18th.
Yes.
A small number of protesters, this is by James Griffiths, CNN.
Yeah.
A small number of protesters remain inside a Hong Kong University campus that has been the site of a prolonged battle with police. The overnight drama at Hong Kong Polytechnic University, it's Poly-U they call it, in Hung Hom, in the southern tip of Kowloon Peninsula, saw some of the most violent and dramatic scenes in almost 6 months of anti-government demonstrations. We have seen some stuff around here and we think, oh, 4 dead in Ohio, Kent State is so bad. This is like millions of people on the street.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they are not, they do not have the luxury of being armed.
No, they don't. In fact, in some of because the police started to storm the university, to keep the police out, the protesters were using bricks, Molotov cocktails.
They set fire to the entrance.
They set a big bonfire to the in front of the entrance, and they were using apparently bows and arrows. They've made homemade bows and arrows and things like that. So they're doing what they can to fight. But let's understand what this is about. In fact, the Hong Kong protesters often carry the American flag.
Yes.
Because they are fighting to retain a measure of liberty and freedom that the Chinese want to completely strip from them.
Yes.
Now, if you remember the story, the British occupied Hong Kong on a 99-year lease from 1898 to 1997, and they turned everything back over to the Chinese, the Communist Chinese government in 1997 per the treaty, nearly 100-year-old treaty. The Chinese proceeded to crack down a bit. It took them they started sneaking in and gradually escalating the amount of freedom that they're taking.
Let's stop there. They pledged, the Red China pledged that Hong Kong would remain autonomous.
Correct.
As a Chinese protectorate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have proceeded to renege on those agreements. So the protesters, much like our founders, have legitimate concerns because they have contractual responsibilities that are being reneged on by the Red Chinese. And it's the same thing that the King of England, he had the Magna Carta and the other subsequent documents that contracted the king to a lesser position, and then all of a sudden King George is usurping his power and demanding dictatorial rule. And we've got the same thing going on in China. So they are very much like we were, just trying to fight for what we had. And they're not trying to get something else. They're just trying to have law and order, actual law and order. And whereas the Chinese are coming in and saying, well, forget you. We're going to do what we want. Law be damned.
Okay, now the boiling point that really started this was I believe it was extradition to Red China. Of somebody wanted back in Red China on some crime, that Hong Kong was going to deliver over anybody that Red China wanted out of Hong Kong. And the people of Hong Kong said, oh, no, you don't.
Well, because they were political crimes. And so, it would be like one of us turning over somebody because they were doing something the government prohibited, but it's our right. Freedom of speech, or a rights activist or something like that. Or, I'm carrying a gun. We'll talk about that in a minute.
No, this protest this weekend involved 1/4 of the population of Hong Kong, according to news reports I've heard. That makes 1/4 of Hong Kong, well over 1 million people now, political criminals against Red China.
Oh, yes. So, the big concern, remember we've talked about this before, the Red Chinese are using the social contract and their eyes in the sky, all their facial recognition, real ID kind of technology
that they stole from the United States.
Well, and was given to them.
Bill Clinton was busy that day, distracted.
Anyway, what they are doing is they are actually taking information, and everybody participating in these protests could now be, have their social scores lowered, and thereby not being allowed to travel, not be able to use the public transit system, not be able to use all sorts of things that the government forces people to have to use. And so, and then they can then take those privileges away from you. And sound familiar?
How is it? It's interesting to me that, and I think it's beautiful in a way that I think they learned in Hong Kong that they were going to change this law that would allow China to extradite, and that's what brought them to the streets. Because the leader, forget whoever it was, is it the leader of Hong Kong or the leader of China?
I'm not well versed on.
The point is, the law was going to be changed where they could extradite, and that's what brought them into the streets.
That was one of several different issues.
And there was a female. I think her title may be mayor. I'm trying to remember, but she's
was it Hong Kong.
Right. Yeah.
So
Hong Kong
it's interesting to me. It must be some transparency in the law of Hong Kong that allowed the people of Hong Kong to learn that that was going to happen.
Right.
So they had a chance to come out because basically it's like, come out now and fight or you're done.
Yeah.
This is their basically last
Pretty
chance.
much, and I don't know if the law already exists, and they started protesting after it came about and learned about it, or if it was...
No, they actually protested before it was enacted, and it has been suspended up to now.
Okay.
But what I want to say in this, is to make it a little easier to understand, when you've got a college campus in America, it's like, well, how could they be in a siege? There aren't, unless it's a walled university. In Hong Kong, it is so densely populated that you have cars driving down on the ground in the streets and that pedestrian traffic, and a lot of this is bridges and skyways, and I mean, they are just on top of each other. And so the access is very limited. Now, what was said early on, more than 24 hours ago, was the police said, anybody wants to leave, we will not attack. We will not use violence against them. So a whole bunch of people went out, and they're all moving out, and all of a sudden, the tear gas and everything starts hitting, and they're like, okay.
They started getting tear gassed, arrested, beaten up.
Yeah.
So everything that they were told
was a lie.
Yes. So everything that and I posted about this, because it's so important that we learn some lessons here about this.
From the story, and this is again from the CNN story, it says an attempt by police to clear the area on Sunday was met with fierce resistance. So it's not like they were like, oh yeah, we're just going to leave. There was resistance to the effort to clear, but then it says around 5:30 a.m., police continued to conduct a dispersal and arrest operation. Meanwhile, rioters gathering inside the campus set fire and caused extensive damage.
Right. Well, remember, you're reading from a CNN article, and those guys are not reporters. There's too much editorial.
It says here, I'm not biased either.
Well, but what is rioters inside the campus?
Yeah, but my point is, if we can take it for the basic facts, what's being out is it wasn't like the rioters were just standing there. The cops tried to clear them.
Rioters? There's not a lot of rioting going on. That's the point.
Well, there is, but let me clarify it. On Saturday, reached a stalemate. People realized they were besieged. They were cornered. They were hemmed up. And a bunch of them wanted to leave. They were given this promise by a government that broke all these promises, leading to violence, which then led to this narrative of, oh my goodness, they are lying to us. We're in the Alamo now.
From the CNN story, of course we want to leave. A 23-year-old protester told CNN by phone from inside PolyU, we are still quite safe currently in the campus, but if we try to leave, they will arrest us. They are just everywhere surrounding the campus. Now, that's kind of what you get if you protest, right?
What?
Arrested?
Yeah.
Over there, and that's the point, is you should not be getting arrested for protesting. You should be, you could be arrested if
they're burning stuff.
Well, hang on. That came later. This is part of the problem when you have to choose your
trying to help you here.
Well, no, that's where you have to choose your news sources carefully, and fake news is
the cops can't say we attacked you on Saturday because what you were going to do on Sunday. See. The violence, the damage, the fires, all of that happened on Sunday as a result of the cops breaking their word on Saturday.
So this gets us back to the comply with the police and everything will be fine, right?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you, there's the ultimate paradox is the police chief from Manford being killed by another cop. So if those cops would have just complied with the police command, then...
Well, which one?
That's it. So
right.
anyway, moving on to a story from Sooner Politics.
Well, we missed Duncan. We should give
oh
him
my
an update
gosh,
on
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Breaking story.
Well, I think it's good because well, go ahead.
We were talking about. We wanted to talk
What
about
do you
the
want to
late
finish
breaking
off
story.
what you were going to say for this last segment on?
No,
the Hong
I'm
Kong
just
thing?
well, it's just that there's a tie between Hong Kong and Duncan. So let's get into that.
Okay, let's see if you can make that tie.
Oh,
Tell us
so-
about what happened in Duncan.
Yeah. Good.
Well, today there was a shooting in Duncan at a Walmart, and in the parking lot, a man, it appears, was the estranged husband of a woman and her new boyfriend. He came up to their car and shot through the windshield, killing them both. Subsequently, a man, another patron of Walmart, possessing a lawful firearm. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's no such thing. But lawfully possessing a firearm, confronted the shooter, and upon that confrontation, the shooter took his own life.
Yeah.
So the beauty here is that, and the tie between here and Hong Kong, is that we have freedoms, and we have regained a measure of freedom here in Oklahoma, to the point that someone could quickly and easily be carrying a weapon. Someone who might have just weeks ago been deemed a felon for having done the same thing.
Yes.
And put an end to what could possibly, and there's no indication that it would have, but could possibly have endangered other lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so while it's a sad story, there's a lesson here that we should learn, and takeaways. And David, I think you had some takeaways from it. But some takeaways that liberty works.
Yeah. The reason, now this happened around 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning, and so, the police have not given a lot of official word. I think you went to a British journalism outlet.
Yeah, the Daily Mail.
Daily Mail, and they were able to say there's a likelihood of a scenario of a estranged husband being the shooter, right?
There were several outlets.
I've got the
reported.
USA Today story. 3 people were killed Monday in a shooting outside Walmart. Ended when a bystander pointed a gun at the shooter, police and witness said. Police responding to calls shortly before 10 a.m. local time found a man and a woman dead in the front seat of a car in the parking lot, and another man deceased outside the car, Duncan Police Chief Danny Ford said. It appears several rounds were fired into the car, and a handgun was found on the scene. Authorities have not revealed a motive for the shooting. Ford said it appears a gunman shot the male and the female victims and then turned the gun on himself. So they knew each other, but he's not describing their relationship.
David had some, and that's why I asked him to set it up, because he's got
This is just breaking. I didn't have time.
But, so here's what I want to say. Scenario 1, which David's sources say is likely, is that you had basically an estranged former husband who was mad because his wife's off with another man. He confronts them there, and boom. Okay, it got nasty. In that scenario, the gunman was not seeking random victims.
Correct.
Okay? There were 2 people he was going after. Okay. That man was not made more likely to cause a crime because we adopted permitless carry in Oklahoma. Because he was not, it wasn't that it was made legal. He says, oh, now I think I can go kill a couple of people. No, he was hell-bent on doing it and would have done it whether it was legal for him to carry or not.
In fact, it was the random ownership of a gun that stopped the whole process.
Exactly. Yes. And by the way, that gunman who did not have to fire his weapon actually had training. He's a military vet. Okay, so now we've allowed these military vets and every other law-abiding citizen. Now you don't have to jump through hoops. You can be part of restoring a peaceful society.
Exactly.
Okay, now, if it had been a random act of violence by somebody just looking for people to shoot up, again, the fact that we allow permitless carry wasn't going to stop an estray or a psycho, crazed gunman. Okay, but there again, if that was the case, then he likely would have been moving on to more victims after shooting the first two in the car. And then that scenario, the veteran gunman, peaceful gunman, law-abiding man, did save lives.
Yes.
So, and as a bonus, we don't have to pay for the criminal justice system before we fry this guy in the electric chair.
Oh my gosh! You're not going to serve on the jury. I'll tell you
That's what every conservative loves.
That's right. So I'm saying, no matter what way you slice it here, permitless carry was a positive influence in this.
Yes.
Now, it would be interesting to find out if this veteran, I think he's named in the story, we should plug him for sure.
I haven't even had a chance to pull that up.
But he, I don't know that he had a concealed carry permit or not. It'd be interesting to find out.
We haven't found those details out. Everything was breaking all day so quickly and was so sparse. And I'm sure that they were still doing investigations into the afternoon.
But we put the link to the story that Tom was reading. It's on 3D Politics Live Facebook page. And post it up there if you know the answer, whether or not this guy had previous concealed carry or if he's just somebody who now is legal because of the enactment of permitless carry.
And just to tie into this, there was another shooting in California.
Yeah.
4 people dead. I know no details. I've not had a chance to look at that whatsoever today. So if you know anything about that, let us know. We'd love to have your participation in the conversation at 3D Politics.
Yeah.
But we're live now, so if you throw that in, we might be able to.
And the story I read from was pretty early in the reporting, so there was very little info. They weren't releasing any names. It was just all new. I don't really want to go the gun theme.
Okay.
And let's do the Tim Harper update with OK2A.
Yes. Since our last show, last week, Monday night, Tim Harper, we talked about him getting thrown under the bus by OK2A. I'm sorry, that's the way I'm going to put it, Don Spencer. I felt like, you had that.
I don't quite agree with that. But that characterization.
Nonetheless, they were distancing themselves politically from Tim Harper. And, we talked about, hey, what if it had been a bunch of young black guys wearing hoodies, walking up Nichols Hills where the ladies having a bridge club, we talked about, yes, you got to be sensitive to the kind of impact here. Okay, that's recap. Here's what David Prater pounced on, is we found a law that didn't get changed. Don Spencer, I think you got some homework to do, because Don didn't even realize it.
I think Don knows about it, because he's already been working on it.
Exactly.
I watched his video.
And here's what the law says, that if a business establishment is serving liquor or any alcoholic beverages, then nobody can carry there.
Right, and that would preclude police from entering TGI Fridays, or a Chili's or something like that. Even though the
or a bar.
Well, here's the thing. The rule is, and again, it's really arbitrary, is that if you are in a place that serves more than 51% or 50% plus
51%.
or 51% of your business is alcohol, then you cannot lawfully possess a firearm in there. If you are at a restaurant that has a bar, whereby less than 50% of their business is is bar business,
Yeah.
then you can carry.
It's real easy
Except
to fix
in the
this.
bar area.
You just let the police be, better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Well,
and
yes.
more equal.
That would
Right.
be David's. That would be D'Ambroso's.
That's
solution.
right.
Yeah. So here's what I'm getting at with this. Now, Tim this weekend did bond out. They wanted
Tim Harper.
Tim
bonded out.
Harper. Now he's of course the publisher of News Now OKC. The famous guy does Second Amendment audits. Right, the camera's rolling, but. So they wanted him to pay $10,000 cash, no, $100,000 cash bond. They finally, bail agent got in there and they got it down to a surety of $10,000 cash on the $100,000. But they pulled the Rick Hubbard move on him and said, and you have to turn over all your firearms.
And you can't talk.
And yes, no social media for you. Your social media score is too low. Hello, China. And
how many kids can he have?
And he cannot go or be at any firearms retail establishment. No gun shows. He can't go to any place. I don't even know if he can go to Dick's.
He can't search online for.
Now, mind you, and this was something that Don pointed out, because Don was at his arraignment.
Yeah.
And watched the whole thing, and Don has repeatedly said, and said in his latest video, that Tim Harper has broken no law. There's actually no law broken. There's only some people who have feared when they don't have the right. And that may be as much as it goes, if even that. But it's just harassment at this point, and I'm sick of it, quite frankly. You
Here it comes. Here it comes.
So to balance this conversation, now what Tim Harper did break was his own word, according to Don Spencer. Don Spencer said in his latest video, this November 15th video, that Tim Harper promised he wasn't going to do this thing that brought negative attention. And according, now I don't know, because I don't know either, gentlemen, but according to Don Spencer's November 15th OK2A video,
Right.
Tim Harper broke his word to Don Spencer.
That's Don's claim.
I agree.
Okay.
That's Don's claim. We agree that's Don's
that's
claim.
his claim.
Yeah. My agreement here with the problem is, as described, is that it's arbitrary enforcement of the law. My snide comment about the police could be more equal and just let them come in. The point is, and this is pointed out very well by Don Spencer, that it's unclear what the law is, and they just decide whether they're going to enforce it or not, depending on the length of your barrel. And to further that, it's sickening to me that the government's got their fingers so far toward your prostate that they know 51% of your business is something.
That you are required to know that about a business to know whether you can have it or not.
These millennial aliens that pretend that the employer makes up all your wages have no idea how far the government is up their anus.
Well, but Hillary was not prosecuted because they couldn't determine that she had criminal intent in all of her law breaking. But that doesn't seem to apply to Tim Harper here.
Remember, it's this. We are talking lawlessness here.
Yeah,
this is
arbitrary enforcement of law is lawlessness.
Yes. And arbitrariness is an integral part of tyranny.
Yeah.
And so the point is, and this is why I do what I do, is I want law and order.
Yeah.
But you don't get law and order by government dictate. You get law and order by following the law, and the law must be in accord with the supreme law, the Constitution, which most of this stuff is not.
Okay.
So
Don Spencer said three things that I agree with, and that is that Tim Harper made a poor choice. And I hearken back to the back fat story. My disagreement is not that these ladies want to take off their top. It's that they're shocking the community purposefully to get a reaction. And I believe that's what Tim Harper was doing. You call it an audit, whatever you want. I believe that's what Don Spencer is saying, is that it was a poor choice to carry your gun into a place. Was it really worth it? The money and the loss of your freedoms?
But you got two things here, and we got to separate the apples and oranges. There's the statutory law and constitutional law here, and based on that, Don Spencer says Tim Harper has not broken any of this, okay?
Correct.
But then there's the politics, and I think that's what you're...
Same thing with the bat fact thing. They didn't break a law. That's just shocking purposefully the community.
But in Don Spencer's world, of his politics and his lobbying and everything, the optics are essential here. And in Don Spencer's world, having an orderly and strategic maneuvers of the optics is going to move the people in the direction of saying it's okay for people to have guns.
More importantly, the optics, Tim Harper, according to Don Spencer, broke his word.
According to
Tim Harper said to Don Spencer, according to Don Spencer, Tim Harper said, I won't do these things. That's more important than the optics.
But Tim Harper doesn't owe Don Spencer any commitment.
And Tim Harper told... Tim Harper's no longer a member of OK2A, and from what I understand, he can't be.
Right. That's correct.
It's because Don Spencer has to make sure that his important group doesn't look like they are condoning this kind of behavior. Right. And in fact, it's important for Don Spencer to make clear that he told and agreed with Tim Harper, don't do these things that purposely shock the community. And Tim Harper just did it anyway.
And this is, to me, the parallel between the Missouri Oath Keepers and the national organization, because Missouri Oath Keepers said, man, the folks in Ferguson, these are minority-owned businesses, and they don't even know how to go about legally getting firearms. So they start counseling them and guiding them through the process. And the National Oath Keepers said, whoa, you're going to arm black people, we can't have that, and they disown the Missouri leadership. And because of the optics. And I see a very similar thing going on.
Exactly.
I know, but the principle, and obviously it's,
it's a little closer than that. Tim Harper had an agreement, and clearly, unless Tim Harper's saying, oh no, I never made that agreement.
Well,
there's
a big difference, though, and that is that you're bringing apples and oranges. In comparison between apples and oranges. And the number one thing is, remember, it is the government who is going after Tim Harper.
Yeah.
Don and OK2A have kicked Tim Harper out. They're done. That's what the end of the agreement. If he broke his agreement, the result was you're done with OK2A. No, we're not.
Right. If I can't make an agreement with you that stands. And
unfortunately, when you do things that are politically bad optically, like Tim has done, even though it's within his right, and he should suffer nothing from the hand of government. Unfortunately, it is inevitable. Eventually, it is inevitable. And especially the way that he goes about it. You can do it in ways that mitigate that inevitability, but Tim has chosen to ignore those. I think Don is a good example of someone who does that. I do that when I do things. I go to a point and then I back off. And it's not to say that I'm backing away from my right. It's just I'm not willing to go to the point of...
You have to calculate what the value of the risk is.
Exactly.
Hey, if you're just joining us, you're watching 3D Politics live every Monday, 7 p.m. right here on Facebook. I'm Tom McKay, your host. I've got David Van at SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, Constitutional Grounds, TramPled.com, and you can catch me, Tom E. McKay, at Twitter. What else do you want to finish off about this?
Well, I want to say I commend Don Spencer in following this, in giving a commitment that he's going to be there with the resources of OK2A to at least politically give the message of Tim Harper is an innocent man.
Yes.
Now, that's I'm going to commend. The other part I'm going to say, they pretty much made Tim Harper the bait for David Prater by saying, remember what you said? You don't choose the group chooses you.
That's right.
And the group threw out Tim Harper and left him vulnerable with nobody having
It gave Prater a measure of room to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do agree with that.
So that's a little bit of a problem, and we've got to quit doing that. We can find better ways to do that than I think what happened here.
I think it comes down on this story to a man's word. Because if Tim Harper broke his word with Don Spencer, that puts Don Spencer, for me it explains Don Spencer's delivery of the video.
I understand.
Because Don Spencer didn't just chunk Tim Harper totally
down. But I'm going to say, Tim Harper didn't owe his word to Don Spencer. If he gave it, then he's bound by it.
What does Don Spencer owe Tim Harper then?
Right.
If Tim Harper doesn't owe Don Spencer to even keep his own word, what does Don Spencer?
If we are patriots standing on our constitutional rights, we should be brethren, at least at some point. Even if we can't.
Both men owe each other.
Yeah, I understand that. But we can disagree on strategy, and that's what they've done here, is they disagreed on strategy, and that doesn't make you enemies. And this is a problem that we have on the right.
I totally disagreed with Tim Harper's maneuver and his decision to do what he did. And I thought Don Spencer in his video was quite gracious. I mean, he had to make a professional statement that OK2A is, we're not going to have that guy. At the same time, he did clarify that Tim Harper's not done anything that is illegal.
Yeah, I think we're moving
I think Tim Harper put Don Spencer in a tough spot.
Politically, yeah. It is tough.
Politically, yes.
But again, you don't have to all agree with Don Spencer in order to be an advocate for your rights.
No.
Now, here's what I want to say about Prater in this. I think what Prater's doing is taking a lesson from what Steve Kunzweiler's doing here in Tulsa with Recovered. They have pushed that case back 3 years. We found that out last week.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's what they're going to do. This case is never going to be litigated. They're going to keep his guns and keep that gag order on him for the next 3 years.
Right.
That's what they're after.
Right.
It's the political, that makes him a political prisoner, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, he's under political house arrest, as it were.
Essentially.
From free expression. Now, mind you, that, I don't, see, there's no lawfulness to an order like that. Mm-hmm. You can't just order somebody that they can't exercise their rights, as a means of getting out of prison, especially when you're not going to provide them a speedy trial. And that's something we have to work on here in Oklahoma, because 3 years is not speedy.
Okay, now, so not only have they violated his Second Amendment rights, but now they're violating his First Amendment rights.
Oh, yes.
And what Bill of Rights, what number is it, right to protection from excessive bail?
The Eighth Amendment.
Eighth Amendment. Now they violated that. Because when they made bail conditional upon you losing your First Amendment.
Correct.
Okay?
It's extortion.
So now we violated 3 of his constitutional rights here.
Right. Well,
just
remember that you lose time. Okay, you never gain time back.
Yeah.
So what happens is a surety bond is to make sure you show up in court and you get that money back once you do. What they have proceeded to do is steal his guns, steal his speech, for at least the period of time that he is being held to answer for these charges. And if they then put it off for 3 years, then he loses his rights for 3 years, and he has never been granted due process of law. And you cannot lose your liberty except after due process of law. That's the Fifth Amendment. So the point is that these orders are wholly unconstitutional, and every DA that asks for them, Steve, DA Prater, you are violating your oath, and the judges that put them on there need to be kicked off the bench because none of them have obeyed the Constitution. Not one person in this is guiltless. What is the argument? I want to know what the arguments have been used by the defense attorneys. Are they guiltless in this whole thing? Or are they complicit by not saying, look, this is a Fifth Amendment violation, you can't do that? Or are they, because they are constitutionally compromised by their Bar Association membership as a requirement to practice, so they have already forsaken their rights in order to practice, that they are then so compromised that they have forgotten about the Constitution of the United States, and they don't even offer it as a defense.
Yeah. What I like to see now, and this is the action bullet point here, is Don, you got some directive on how you should be doing these audits. You've mentioned the times you carry a camera with you, and that start training a bunch more Tim Harpers out there to do things in a way that is consistent with what OK2A is trying to do. Because if we have a void, if we have a silence, if we have the loss of the free press here, with Tim Harper not being a part of it, we need people to step up and take his place. Now, Adrian Otap has done some of that, and there's plenty of others who would like to. But again, we want to work on this as a team. And it's time for some teamwork. And Don, I think you've got a perfect opportunity to raise and train some people who can make sure David Prater knows he's not going to shut us up with this intimidation.
Well, wouldn't it be nice to have, out of the intimidation of two, an army rise up of people auditing our government employees who unfortunately have gotten the view that they are greater than their masters, and want to dictate to the rest of us.
Yeah.
That's just, unfortunately, it's sickening, and I'm getting more and more sick of it.
Well, it's going to take some grassroots move, and I know you guys ready to move on to. You guys ready to move on to the?
Yes.
I know last week we did a story on improve our taxes, and I got to say it was a pretty significant show. I know that the improve our taxes thing that GT pushed only passed by like 84% to 12%, and that was after our show. So imagine how much worse it would have been if we hadn't done our show. Would have been like 90% or something.
Well, I want to know where my Tulsa County Republican Party was on this, because we had a perfect opportunity to pass a resolution at a county committee meeting not a week prior to that, and it wasn't brought up at all. It wasn't on the agenda. In times past, in fact, it was back in 2012. We had a county committee meeting where, now what was that? Was that the Vision 2?
That was Vision 2.
Vision 2.
No, that was Vision 2.
No, and not only did the members of the Tulsa Republican County Committee vote to disapprove of it, but we even censured two of our county commissioners for even bringing up the idea.
Oh, yes. Well, because...
Oh my gosh.
Don't get me started.
Yeah,
I could go on.
That was
on
just
this,
a throwaway. I was just trying to make the point that the improve our taxes vote only passed 84%, and I know that's due to our effectiveness on our show last week, because it would have been
90 plus.
90 plus.
And I was Michael Bates has really made some effort on this to speak against
that's
it.
when
He
you find
deserves
out
it.
everything.
I published some things in Sooner Politics on it, but besides that, and this show and Bates,
Bates
really
is where you find out everything.
Yeah. On city issues, he's
That's
about as good as they get.
basically the place you start. This is a state story. Sooner Politics. Marijuana dispensary declares no meat store rule. Now, you guys laugh, but I got some serious comments about this.
Yeah, okay.
I will tell you, this is just 11/17/2019. 2 employees cited for violating, quote unquote, the holy place rule regarding bringing sack lunches to work with meat. Okay, you public school teachers can learn something here. So the owner of 2 medical marijuana dispensaries, Robert Cox, just demonstrated his lack of tolerance this past week by scolding and suspending an employee for bringing a sack lunch to work with a meat sandwich, which was stored in the back room refrigerator. It's not clear how the employer discovered the contents of the sealed lunch meat, but maybe he's got a good nose. But the employer quickly took the employee off the schedule and accused her of violating the holy space we've created at Friendly. Now, the place of this is called Friendly what?
The Friendly Market. There are 2 locations. They have one the original one is in Norman, and now they're up there by Lake Hefner, north side of Oklahoma City.
Now, just a couple more things to tie everybody in. There is a little bit of intrigue because Stephen Holman is the shop owner and
the manager.
He's the shop manager of the Norman store.
Yeah.
And all this happened in Oklahoma City.
Correct.
However, now Stephen Holman, the manager of Norman, he defends Robert Cox's right to ban employees from taking meat. Stephen Tyler Holman from the Norman store, he wrote an entire piece that clarifies that the whole meat eating travesty happened at the OKC store, not at the Norman store, that many people commented to him about why he was so mean to fire somebody for eating meat, even though he didn't do it. And then he says about Friendly Market, feel free to eat all the meat you desire anywhere you want, but you will definitely be asked not to do so inside the Friendly Market store.
Yes. No. For those who might not know, remember, Friendly Market is the market that had all of their glass pipes stolen by the prosecutor in Norman, the DA in Norman, to before the medical marijuana law passed, because they were paraphernalia and therefore must be illegal. They couldn't be used for anything other than pot smoking, even though they weren't selling pot or doing anything. It was glass. It was just glassware.
You got to get your bust in.
And I'm telling you, if it looked like Grandpa's pipe, it's legal. If it looks like a hippie pipe, it's illegal.
Exactly.
I don't know what an Indian peace pipe would be legal or illegal. Depends what they're going to smoke in that. I don't know. But this is just totally an it is a law based on the artistic creation.
This ain't your grandma's hookah bar.
Yeah. And this is a problem. Now, on that case, they took thousands of dollars of their pipes, wiped out their store,
and still have not given them back after everybody was acquitted.
That was clearly get the bust in before the law changed. That's easy.
I talked about Stephen Holman. He looks like the consummate hipster,
Oh,
you know,
he is a hipster.
and he actually is now a member of the Norman City Council.
Yes, he is.
You know, and
after he got arrested and went through the whole thing, he then ran for city council and won.
Yes, that's right. So this is why you do mayoral elections while the campus is still in semester. You don't do it in the summer when all the kids are gone.
That's true.
That's how you get the kids that okay. Now, here's the other thing. You read some of what Stephen Holman. That guy is a PR genius. He took a whole terrible situation that the the owner, the guy who put up the money for it, Robert Cox, and it was a disaster because I'm the admin for the largest Facebook group for medical marijuana patients. I have about 10,000 members in this group I started, and I'm really focusing on helping to develop medical standards, help people to help each other. You know, what's your condition? Right. Here's what I'm taking, it's working good. You know, you might need less, you might need more. That's the kind of self-help, because the medical community is not going to give us that.
Right.
So I started talking about this. I said, wow, so now we've gotten medical marijuana passed on an argument of tolerance.
Right.
And we've got the most intolerant dispensary owner, and I think he's Buddhist. I don't know. I'm guessing. But they're vegan there, and they associate it with their holy place because, you know, it's that.
Right.
And, you know, I started telling people, I said, look, you know, if you've got some beef jerky when you go checking out prices there, that'd be an interesting way to tell them, you know, where you stand on this. And so, yeah, hey, this is kind of trouble I make, you know.
What if it's free range beef jerky?
Yeah, I know.
The one thing is, and if it's true, everybody knew better when they signed on to work there. So, and as constitutionally speaking, as a business owner, he can set the standards and the requirements for anything he wants. As ridiculous as it sounds to us.
I got a question there, because I know people that work in the corporate world where the stories run something to the effect of, this guy watches porn 4 hours a day at work and we can't fire him. What we have to do is pink slip him, and then 90 days later pink slip him again, then he has the warning, and God forbid if they're in the cross-sectional protected class, well, she's handicapped, black, and a female, and it doesn't matter what she does. She ate a sandwich, so what?
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
So what I want is, how the hell does this guy who owns a pot smoking place, and a dispensary, I shouldn't call it a pot smoking place.
No, we don't have those quite yet.
He owns a dispensary, but how does he have the power to fire someone just like that? The other thing that I noticed...
Well, he suspended them.
Let's understand, he fired her so quickly, it shows him to be rather reactionary. Not only intolerant, but reactionary.
Well, and that was one of the things Stephen Holman said. Yeah, his initial reaction was wrong. And so his PR guy down in Norman is trying to clean this up, and he said, I can't even clean that. That's just wrong.
If his panties were all in a wad about a meat sandwich, and he would have worked it out with the girl ahead of time, none of this would ever
happen. Well, again, if she signed on to it, then it was worked out. She broke the rules. Now, for him, obviously, this is a hill he's willing to die on.
Yeah.
At least it was for a moment.
The cannibals are thankful for that.
Like maybe he's backing off of that.
He is. He's really backing up, because this was going to turn into a big-time boycott. And I was ready to start.
Well, I thought that was interesting.
They were.
In the story, the guy from Norman that Stephen Holman said, a lot of people were on to him in a negative way because they thought he was the one, right? Which tells you the whole vegan lifestyle isn't all that popular.
If you look at all their advertising, the iconic figure is Stephen Holman's head. In what 3D has that blue and that red kind of outside. And that's, you know, so Holman's image is that store,
right?
And so he's got to clean this up. Because this isn't going to just affect his business. This is going to affect his political opportunities.
As well.
Yeah, right.
It's going to affect him.
Yeah. So here's what I just said. Well, what if it's medicinal meat? What if somebody's... and, you know,
nice one.
I
like the way you think.
So Julia Zell, who's the former head legal counsel for the health department, remember when they put it?
Right.
She just said, okay, is it just me that's thinking dirty thoughts of this? And I said, yes, Julia, it's just you. But Anyway, so let's get our heads out of the gutter.
It could be rescue meat, emotional distress meat.
So, and there were lots of comments. Again, when you got a Facebook group of 10,000, you get a lot of comments. But here's my point on this, is there are people who have difficulties getting enough protein. I know kids, young adults, people, they need a high protein diet. I've got grandkids who are allergic to both peanuts and eggs. And those are the only real alternative. Well, I guess there's dairy. You get a little bit of protein from that. But, so my thing is, if you got somebody whose doctor says, yes, you need this much protein, and this is how, and iron, and, other things like that, eventually you got an, ADA claim, for employment termination.
The bigger issue, besides the medical thing, is he calls his place a holy space. It's not recognized religion. I'm sorry. No matter how many customers you have,
it doesn't matter what he calls it or what he thinks or anything. It doesn't matter. He owns the property. He can do with it what he wants.
Yes.
Now he also...
Can you own a holy space, David?
Yes.
You can?
Sure.
Well, there's the Temple Mount there that's being fought over between the Jews and the Palestinians right now. And they both claim it to be the most holy place on earth, right?
Third most holy in
the hill they're
Muslim religion.
I think.
Yeah.
After Mecca and Medina.
But the Jews consider it the place of the original
temple.
Temple,
It is the original temple.
Originally I was from Mecca. Eventually I had to face it.
Yeah. Okay. So, here's the other thing on this. They've got a little bit of problem here. What really made this blow up was not the female who violated the rule just by sticking a closed sandwich in a bag in the refrigerator that I guess the boss decided to snoop on. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. That's the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah,
right?
well, no, it's at work.
Unreasonable ham
So,
sandwich.
that would bother me. But another employee, it was a male employee, decided to blow up in front of the customers, and he is terminated now for his conduct in blowing up on it. But he's the one that made it the big issue.
Why did he get all upset?
I think it's just feeling like...
Was he pro-meat or anti?
I think it's the dignity of an employee getting to choose what meals they eat.
He's upset for the employee.
Fine, if you want her to go sit in her car to eat it, she just needs a place to keep it from getting salmonella poisoning during lunch, And
between arrival and lunch.
And they don't pay crap there, so people can't afford to go eat like you can, Mr. Robert Cox, the owner. Don't believe me. Dispensary staff are not making much money.
Okay.
Because they can find lots of people who want to work there. A lot more than what they need.
The benefits are great. The pay is horrible.
So anyway,
starve to death while you work.
Yeah, but
and especially when it's a pot store and everybody's got the munchies.
Yeah, but I want to commend City Councilor Stephen Holman from the Norman Friendly Market for talking sense into the owner, because the owner really screwed up, and Holman knew enough. Holman, you deserve a huge raise and probably a profit sharing at this point.
And a ham sandwich.
Well, here's the thing. I ran the numbers today. I looked at one of the most recent lists of dispensaries. Oklahoma County has 450 dispensary licenses issued in that one county.
Okay.
450. That's like 3 times as much as what I think would be sustainable. And so this store was up at Lake Hefner on the side of Oklahoma City, where there's already a glut of them. And you want to hang on to market share. And he was going to lose it all.
Oh, gotcha.
He still may lose it all. This still is a real problem on it. But
sounds like he needs to back off, let Holman run it.
And it's a small, close society. A lot of these people who are using this stuff, they talk to each other and so forth.
On my Facebook group.
And so the word gets around very quickly that the friendly market is a little less friendly than they let on, and all their troubles and the goodwill that they had generated from all the problems that were foisted upon them quickly go out the window when they mistreat their employees and potentially customers.
It's a cannibalistic industry. The Stephen Holman guy kind of reminds me of the tall, skinny guy from the Warner Brothers cartoon where they were chasing each other around. The guy looked like a hot dog, and one looked like
Anyway. And I have to say, my friend and your friend Norma Sapp was an employee there early on, Bud Tender, and she still does some promotional things with
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so, yeah.
I
do. I want to say something it's kind of on a somber note. One of the pioneers in citizen journalism in Oklahoma and the conservative movement, John Angier, passed away last week. John started a cable access news show with his friends Steve Bias, John Greening, and Terry McBear, I believe. I got that right. Sorry, Terry. But anyway, I'm not kidding you. You think of Wayne's World when we talk cable access.
Yeah,
But
right
that's
on the
really what they're
basement.
doing. And I've been to events where John's always got the camera up and going. He took his craft seriously. He's a member of Professional Photographic Journalists Society. He's been involved in the conservative movement going way back to the 80s and 90s. I've talked to him a few times. He's been a campaign consultant for a number of campaigns. Anthony Sykes was one of his clients, Senator Sykes. In fact, I started bad-mouthing Sykes, and I didn't hear back from Sykes, but John Angier came back at me with everything because he was But he passed away, and last week, and I think we're going to have a write-up in Sooner Politics about him, because it's guys like that who are mentors to the rest of us.
Right.
So,
Well, thanks for mentioning that.
yeah.
Again, every Monday, 7 p.m., you can catch us live right here on Facebook, 3D Politics Live. I've got David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com. You can find me on Twitter at Tom E. McKay. Don't forget to catch us once again, Facebook Live, Mondays at 7 p.m.